So I said, well, man, if they can do, hundreds of thousands a year, a million a year, I can do, a fraction of that. I made like what at the time was like one of my biggest trades. It was like $80 on this OTC breakout. I was like, man, that was so sick. So then I stopped going to college. The first, and I would say the most difficult part in the beginning and most important is finding the right people. That's the last thing you want to do. Is in the beginning, if you're trying to make money, you will most likely lose it. Like it's just gonna happen because you need experience. And if you do make it, you're gonna give it away.
All right, welcome, Ben. Welcome to the show. Let's kick this thing off with learning more about your journey and how did you get started in the world of finance?
All right. So yeah, like you said, that's my name is Ben and I have been day trading small caps for oh man. I started learning in about 2018. So it's been, I mean, at the end of this year, this will be my sixth year since I started. And I started getting into it at the end of my high school years. And I just discovered Tim Sykes actually. So I learned about it from my dad because he just did like the mutual funds and kind of slow retirement investing, which is, what most people do when they get to their retirement age. And I was like, man, that's pretty cool. I wonder what else you can do with that. So then I Googled stuff about stock market and then I found penny stocks and then I Googled penny stocks and I saw, hey, Tim Sykes here, like a lot of people do. And so, yeah, I've just been learning and trying to do my best ever since then. And here we are now, about 5.5 or 6 years later, and still been doing it. Been doing it. This is my third year full time now.
Awesome. So, like, what really interested you about, going for penny stocks instead of going for, blue chip companies or like your dad was investing in mutual fund? Why not mutual fund
hmm
and doing this?
Yeah. So the reason for penny stocks versus mutual funds is they are quite a bit more volatile. And a lot more risky. But I knew that kind of going into it. And at the time I was about 18 and actually 17 when I was first getting into it. So I didn't have nearly enough money to make it even worthwhile to get into like Google or Amazon, like these multiple hundred or $1,000 stocks. It's like, what am I going to do? Buy one share and hopefully in 10 years I'll double it or triple it or whatever. I'm like, man, like, if I want to do it, I want to do it and get into it. And I've seen other people do it in the past. And I said, well, if they can do it, why not me? Or even though they've done a lot, like I first heard about like Tim Bertani and like I said, Tim Sykes already and all these guys that probably a lot of people grew up kind of looking up to, and same for me. So I said, well, man, if they can do, hundreds of thousands a year, a million a year, I can do, a fraction of that. So that's what really attracted me to it, and the ability to just kind of be able to do it from anywhere and being able to just be really flexible with your time. And that's really the main things that attracted me to it in the first place, and just seeing how much of a challenge it was and learn and understanding that the learning curve was big but achievable. So those are the kind of things that interested me in the beginning.
You mentioned that you started when you were 17, 18-ish. So did you go to college at all?
So I actually, kind of funny about that. I did briefly go to college for like 1.5 semesters. That's it. So I had, it's kind of funny, but so why I went is because in my high school we had like I forget what it was called, but it was like a college credit plus program. So if you took certain classes in high school, you'd get like free college credits to go there to like our local community college in my town or in the nearby town. So I was like, all right, well, I'll do that, just to see how it is. And, my parents wanted me to go try it out, especially since it was for free. And so I went there first semester, did really good, got good grades and stuff. And I just went for a basic, like 2 year degree. Not that, well, I didn't go for 2 years, but I signed up for 2 years and I just went for just like a basic business, whatever degree that probably a lot of people that don't know what they want to do go and get. And so I did one semester. It was great. And then that's kind of when I started getting into trading was at the end of that semester. That's when I went to the Tim Sykes conference for the first time. That was 2018. And that like really lit a fire up in me, seeing all these people in person. And because it's one thing to see them online and see them post on Twitter or whatever about like their trades or watch them on YouTube, but once you see them online and you talk to them in person and see how normal they are, that they're just people, you're like, man, it really makes you feel like you can do it too, which is I think why they make those sort of conferences. And so that was towards the end of my first semester, and then the second semester has started up, and like I was just really itching about trading, and I was working part-time job and doing all this other stuff at the time, so I was like, man, like I just can't do all of it. So I had to drop the school at that period, and it was really funny because the day that I did, I made like what at the time was like one of my biggest trades. It was like $80 on this OTC breakout. I was like, man, that was so sick. So then I stopped going to college. So yeah, that was my college journey.
Oh, that was a good luck charm.
Yeah, good luck, John, for sure. Yeah.
Amazing. And was your family supportive of your decision?
Luckily, yes, they were. So I've been very fortunate and blessed in my life to have an extremely supporting and understanding family. Like no matter what I did throughout my life, like I used to skateboard a lot when I was like a young teenager, and they would take me to all the skate parks in Ohio and just travel me around and stuff. And as you know, I'm big into guitar, so they would help me with the guitar stuff and hook me up with these connections, and then so it was the same for trading, like even my dad actually came with me to the Tim Sykes conference to go check it out. So that was pretty fun. So they were super supportive, and they respected my decision, and they saw that how much of a passion I had for it even at the beginning before I was not making anything. So yeah, I hear from a lot of people that unfortunately the parents are kind of against it. They think it's sketchy, and my parents did at first too, but I showed them and then they understood. So yes, to answer that, very fortunate and very blessed to have supporting friends and family.
I think the conference definitely would have helped, just like the way it kind of put everything into picture for you meeting all those people, probably for your dad the same way.
Hmm.
And I'm curious because your dad just got as much as interested. Does he studies with you?
He hasn't really. He has watched a few Tim Sykes videos and like the Tim Grittani. Are you familiar with the Trading Tickers DVD?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I showed him a little bit of that just to see, but about like 30 minutes through, I heard some snoring in the background, so I don't think he's as into it as me.
Interesting. But did you kept your part-time job while you were studying?
Exactly. So yeah, actually what I did is throughout my late, like I think I was sophomore, junior in high school, up until I was about 21. I was actually just working at my local KFC. That was like how I started, and that's how I saved up my money. So luckily the manager there, she was super cool. So I thank her a lot as well because she knew that I did that. So my shift would start at 4 p.m. So I would work from like 4 until like 9 or 10, like 5, 6, sometimes 7 hours, but not usually. And so yeah, I would do that maybe 3, 4, 5 times a week. And that gave me plenty of time for, especially since I had stopped going to college, I could just sit down and watch the market all day, or well, for most of the day, not like the last 15 minutes, but yeah, I got to learn all I could, and I still was earning a little bit, so that way if I took some losses, I could kind of refinance the small account at the time. And yeah, so I just kept working and kept it going until I felt like I could, make enough from it. And it took like 4 years, but so that's when I finally did it. And then that's when I switched to full time about three years ago now.
Amazing. And could you
Yeah, man.
like go a bit deeper into how did you navigate it into the this process? Because it's a long process, as you mentioned. You are now in
Hmm.
your sixth year, and
Right.
for someone to do this, because at the end of the day, this is in a traditional world, it's not considered like a full-time job. So it's very
Hmm.
hard for you guys to explain someone what you do, and it's very hard to believe in something which is not considered a traditional full-time job. So like, what did you do in the beginning, and how did you laid out a routine for you to be make sure that you are at your place right now?
Okay, yeah, good question, good question. Okay, so I'll try to break it down the best I can because, like you said, it is kind of hard to explain in detail, but I'll try to break it down my best. So in the beginning, it starts. I mean, it's going to sound pretty cliche, but it really just starts with small steps in the right direction. So, like, the first and I would say the most difficult part in the beginning and most important is finding the right people. That's what's really difficult, and because why trading is so hard and it's hard to teach people is because it's an individual thing and it's a total mental game. So we all have different brains and we all think differently, we all act differently and behave differently to certain situations. So the first thing is finding good people that you can trust and that have done it, and then they have some sort of verification or track record where whether it's like for me personally, I like to use like Kinfo. You know Kinfo? Yeah,
Yeah.
so I like to use that. Um, Profitly, I know that's still around. A lot of people would use that in the past. But stuff like that, like or just them being known in the community in general, um, learning from those people because those are usually like the people that are like down to earth, like down to help you out, and that's really how you start your network. And in the beginning, kind of my goal was just to meet as many of those people as I could. So, like I had mentioned, I went to the conference, and then from there, I met a few people there, and I met Roland Wolf there. I'm sure you know him, and so I met him, and then from him, I met Jack Kellogg, Dom, Kyle, those kind of also Tim Sykes people that are they knew up and coming people. And yeah, I just went from there and had an open mind and tried my best to listen to everybody and take in what I could and just try to filter out through all the things that the people would say because not a lot of it will stick with you, but just focusing on those things that do stick with you that you can apply to yourself in real time. That's like really what was my initial goal in the beginning, just learning and not worrying about making any money. That's the last thing you want to do is in the beginning, if you're trying to make money, you will most likely lose it. Like it's just gonna happen because you need experience. And if you do make it, you're gonna give it away. So, because I've definitely done that. So, that's my main thing is just finding the correct network and having an open mind and being very humble in the beginning for sure. That's kind of what, if that answers the question, hopefully that kind of is what helps me. Look, when I look back on it, that's definitely what I'd say helped me the most get to where I'm at now.
So like you were following Team Sykes and a bit about your process. This is definitely a side where you were more involved in finding some people that you want to surround yourself with so you can be more involved in this industry. But how did your, routine look like? How did you, like, how many hours did you study? Or, of course, you had work in the night, but how did your
Mhm.
day routine look like?
Okay, yeah. So yeah, my daily routine at the time, and I do remember this. So yeah, it would start off, I'd wake up in like the pre-market. Like I grew up in Ohio, so I was on Eastern time. So I'd wake up 7 or 8, whatever it was, at the time, watch the pre-market. Um, and then I would just watch kind of how people would trade and try my best to understand like what they were looking at and why asking them questions, asking lots of people questions, especially if I was curious as to, why they did this or that and like how they would do it again or maybe how I could do it again. So that was all throughout the day and I would just watch like almost all day on the computer, where there's my like I was on like a little laptop at the time, so I would just watch on my laptop. I'd have like the Discord open with different people I was talking to that I'd met from conferences and stuff. So that was about from 7 or 8 pre-market time until probably until like 1 or 2 p.m. And so I try to get away, like, go either go outside or go do something, get some lunch like somewhere just to kind of get away from the screens because last thing you want to do is just kind of burn yourself out in the beginning by kind of overworking yourself, which is easy to do because one thing that I see a lot of people struggle with is like they just keep trying and trying and trying, and it's like they almost do too much of the same thing, and then it kind of gets a little bit unmotivating if you do it too much. So as important as time at the screens is, also away from the screens is just as important. So that way you can let that information sink in instead of just having like boom, 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 rapid fire, all these new thoughts and ideas pour into you and stuff. So that was until pretty much the entire market, and then about 3:30 or so, my job was like 10 minutes of a drive away, so I'd kind of start packing it up and watch the tickers and stuff into the close, and then I pack it up. I go start driving to the KFC, and then sometimes I look at my phone on the car just to see what's going on, with in a safe manner, only at red lights. And then and then yeah, so then I'd work, and then I would kind of work from four, sometimes five, four to 4 or 5 until like 9, 10, 10:30, and then I'd come back. I'd see what the after hours did, see if there was something that I needed to look at. I'd go kind of scroll back through the chat rooms that I was in, see if I missed anything in the after hours or in that last 30 minutes that I missed. And I would just try to get some ideas for the next day, see what worked, see what kind of setups worked in the market that day, if any, and then just kind of just keep repeating that and slowly adding to it until I kind of found my own personal like market wise process. So yeah, that was pretty much my routine at the time for the first couple of years.
And how much time it took you to gain consistency?
Okay, so yeah, I started my first like when I started actually trading, I it was towards the end of 2017. And that's like when I had no idea what I was doing. So my first like consistent year was at the beginning of 2020. That's like when a lot of people started making money, of course, because the market was so good. And so that's when I finally had found some consistency. I thought it was, it was actually June 2020. So even though like all the COVID stocks had happened in March and February and April of 2020, and even May too, I saw them happening, but I just had no idea what to do. So then finally in June of 2020 is when I finally felt like I found some consistency, and then I was able to produce like mostly profitable months or scrap break even months after that time period. So that was about, let me think, that was about 2 years or so. Yeah, maybe a little bit more than 2 years it took me to get profitable from
And what
first starting.
and what do you think like really happened that you were able to find something in June that you were struggling to see in last 2 years?
The main thing is I would like see how successful people like traded like in person. So like meeting up with people who are consistent and who are profitable and watching them, this is a little bit maybe hard for some people to do because it's hard to find these people sometimes that are willing to do that, or even if they're close by here, that's probably the main thing is they're probably not even close by. But seeing people trade in person really, really helped me out in June and just kind of like literally watching exactly how they think and not like copying their trades by any means, but just seeing their approach. That's really what you need. So part of it was that, and another part of it was I felt like I had learned all of the things that I needed to learn to be consistently profitable. And I had a little bit of that experience for about a year or two, and taking plenty of losses. Nothing big because I was trading just small account at the time, knowing that I wasn't consistent, so there was no reason to trade a big account. And yeah, so the experience of finding out what setups I like, where my personality fits in into trading and watching successful traders actually trade in person and seeing how they go about their process and seeing how I can take away little bits and pieces from what they do and apply it to myself. So it's kind of a combination of those few things.
It's definitely a privilege to be with someone who's a successful trader and
Hmm.
just willing to share and be transparent with you. I think it's a very good thing to have.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was super fortunate with meeting certain people like that, but yeah, going to those conferences, it definitely helped me out. I went to a bunch of Rollins conferences as well, and I met a lot of good people from there. So yeah, just find some people that you can trust and just have an open mind and just talk to as many people as you can and see where you can kind of link minds and then, just kind of go from there. But yeah, it's a very difficult process to kind of find those people who are willing to do that for sure.
Actually spoke about open mind a lot. I'm curious if you have ever met someone who's not open minded.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good question. So I gotta think. I can't think of a specific person right now, but I do know that people who are kind of like closed-minded when it comes to this stuff, where like they don't want to like kind of talk to people, they don't want to put themselves out there, and they just kind of like, they want to do it their way and stuff, and it's just I'm not saying it's impossible to do that, but it's such an uphill battle because I mean, with this sort of if anyone wants to do this career, which is extremely difficult, you have to be very, very humble, and because if not, you will be humbled. I'm sure you've heard that before by the market. An open market will humble you very quick. And so the people that I think I have a couple people in mind, but yeah, it's like it just doesn't work out very well for them because they don't talk to people. They don't kind of open themselves up to new ideas. They're just kind of like, oh, okay. And they just kind of move on, and then they just keep making the same mistakes that they've always made and they always will make. So that's definitely why you have to kind of have a bit of an imagination and let yourself be open to ideas from other people, even if you don't agree with them. Just take them in, see what you can do with them, and go from there. Because if you don't, it's going to be 10 times harder than it already is. And why would you want one of the hardest things in the world to be even more difficult than it already is?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Hmm.
I actually heard a lot of traders, even the ones I had on the show, mentioning the same thing. You have to
Hmm.
surround yourself with other fellow traders. And that's where, I'll share this with you. I was in an event 2 nights ago, and it was just an event named Women in Finance. So all the ladies were there representing different
Hmm.
firms. They were mentioning and sharing their experience working in the pits, where
Okay.
they are surrounded by so many different types of traders, and how they
Hmm.
are just grabbing a piece from here, a piece from there, and just putting things together for themselves to become better.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's the best thing to do is just grab bits and pieces from everyone because even if there's someone who is extremely successful, who's like one of the best, they can tell you exactly what to do, like step by step by step until the beginning to the end, but it's really not going to matter if you can't, like do it yourself, and it's almost impossible to exactly replicate somebody. And you don't really want to do that in trading. You just kind of want to take bits and pieces, like you were saying, from these ladies. So that was some good bit of information that they had there, and that's the best thing you can do, and just try to apply it for your own personality and your own mindset, and see what you can do with that.
Awesome. So tell us a bit
Mm.
more about how did you, you found your consistency in June 2020, and how has the market treated you after that? And, now it's 2024.
Mm.
It's already like 4 years. Doesn't feel like it.
Oh, not at all. I know. I look back on that and it definitely feels like just like not even a year ago. It's crazy as the time just keeps going by and by and by and we're still here. So first off, that's a good thing that we're still around because not many people are after that. But yeah, so 2020 June, it's kind of like my first profitable month. I mean, the main thing was like, yes, I kind of felt like I had learned everything I needed to learn, but the main thing is that the market environment had shifted in an extremely um, positive manner, especially for small cap traders and literally any trader in general, because everything just started ripping like all the time. So there was endless opportunity of volume and volatility like every day and every week for multiple months. So that was so from 2020 until about the end of 2021 is when I kind of had my first initial like breakthrough run where I found consistency. Um, I experienced like the exponential growth and finding out how to do all that good stuff. So I learned how to make money, like, like life, not like significant life changing amount, but like life changing for me amount. to where the point I was like, oh wow, like I can do this for a living. So that was my first period of doing that. Those full that first like year and a half, I really was just, I mean, I don't want to say smooth sailing because there's still lots of ups and downs, but it was pretty much my trajectory, like in terms of profit curve, was just stair stepping its way up without very many pullbacks at all. And so then the end of 2021 came, which is when the market topped for the time being. Now it's at new highs, but for the time it had topped out, and like a lot of the volatility had died off in small caps, at least for um for what it was doing, which was pretty insane. So it really lessened down. So then I had my first drawdown period, which was from November 2021 until January 2022. And funny enough, that's November 2021. So I live on my own right now in New Hampshire, from moving from Ohio. And I literally moved in as soon as the market topped out. So like as soon as the market topped out, that was like the first time in my life I actually needed money to live with. And I was like, what are the odds? So it just made it a lot more difficult, but still got through it luckily. Um, so yeah, and then that was like a big slap in the face for me. Like, okay, like, do I actually know what I'm doing? Because it's especially in a period like that, it's not hard at all to make money. It's really not. It's extremely hard to keep it though for the next until, you get opportunities again. Um, so yeah, and then that kind of put me in a mental beatdown. Like I had this new exterior stress of living expenses, being in a new area and stuff like that. So at the same time as I'm not making any money from trading, I'm losing. So it was a pretty tough period for me. And then in 2022, I found some consistency again in March, April, and May. Um, and then the summer came around of not March 2022, but the summer of 2022 came around, and I experienced yet another drawdown period where it seemed like I would like make a decent trade and then I just give it back over the next 5 trades. Make a decent trade, give it back, and then some over the next 10 trades. So I became inconsistent once again, and I was like, oh my gosh, like how is this possible? Like I'm like 3 or 4 years into this now. Like I should know what I'm doing by now. And that's what I thought, but the truth of the matter is that's not even true at all. Because you never to me, it only matters what you do in the market if you can do it again, and that's really all that matters, because if someone makes 100,000 or a million, it only means something if they can replicate it and do it again for themselves. So I was having a tough time doing that because I'm like, oh my gosh, like last year I was doing so well, like the market was great, and it's not even that the market was terrible in 2022. It was definitely not nearly as good as the prior year, but there were still people making money. Like a lot of my friends were doing okay. A lot of them weren't, like myself. And so I just found myself in another struggle period. And I actually got my account to like the lowest it's been since 2021, like when I first started doing it. So it's like I almost like I was up like this, and then I was experiencing like quite a what felt like a significant dip in my journey. So I was struggling all the way up until the end of 2022. And then 2023 came around and I was forced to size back down to like right around a PDT account. And which that was a lot less than I was used to at the time from the prior years. And I just slowly built it back up into the end of 2023. So then this last year, I had built back up that consistency while using small risk. And like, yes, I didn't make nearly as much as I could have or, should have theoretically, especially compared to like 2022 and some of the opportunities that were presented last year. But I had that consistency and I had that confidence built back up, which that's much more important than any profits will ever be. And then finally, at the beginning of this year, I had used that confidence, and there was a good few stretch of a few weeks this past month and a half or so, and I took those opportunities and I maximized them as best as I could. And luckily, after all of that hardship and drawdown period and mental and emotional battle, I'm finally back at my equity curve of all-time highs. So it's been quite a journey.
Congratulations, first of all, but also
Oh,
thank you
thank you.
so much for sharing your basically entire journey, because
For sure.
it's very easier for us humans just to see the end result. But you mentioning that bouncing ball, like you're basically, your journey is like a bouncing ball where it's going high low, and
hmm
I'm really grateful to you for sharing all of that.
Oh, thank you, man. Yeah, it's my pleasure, man. Just trying to be real about it because I think a lot of people think I actually don't even like telling like people that I do this because like they just they and no fault of theirs, but they just think that like, oh, you do day trading, you must be so happy and so rich. It's like, buddy, it's quite the opposite. It's like so I'm partially kidding, but I guess it's just very easy, like you said, they only see the end result, like they see like, oh my gosh, how'd you make like 50K or 100K, whatever. I'm just making up numbers, whatever it is in a month or something like that, or in a day. Like, yeah, like that's awesome, good for you. Like you're the best. It's like, man, like you don't understand like what I had to do and like what I had to go through to be able to get to that point in the journey. So it's quite the bouncing ball indeed. And sometimes it feels like it's not going to bounce back, but as long as you don't give up on it, as long as you keep trying your best to go forward, it'll keep bouncing in the upward direction.
Got it. So how many strategies will you say right now you have in your bucket?
Okay, yeah. So, it's hard to say exactly because it kind of varies depending on what's going on. I really try to keep it at like no more than like three or four. So I mean, I still trade pretty much every day. So obviously, I'm kind of sometimes I take trades that are outside of my strategies, like just because I make mistakes. And, um, but yeah, so my main ones, my personal favorite one is the first red day. That's like my favorite one. It's just because it's very basic, it's very simple. Sometimes it can be quite tricky, but if it's a clean one, it's just one. And for me, it's like the easiest pattern in the that I've seen because it's just like clean, like green day, green day, green day, and then you wait for the true extension to happen. Wait till the chart just really extends itself, blows people out, max euphoria sort of a deal. And then you finally have that nice pullback day. And that's where I feel like I can clean up the most in a predictable manner. So I like that one. Just basic patterns is really what I trade. And then, like daily breakout patterns, I like longing those. Um, which is, I mean, just that's like the most classic pattern ever. You get a resistance, you get a chart churning up to it, breaks through. Simple enough. Obviously, a lot more goes into it than just that. Um, and then another one that I like doing is the bounce trade. So after that, so you have the breakout or some sort of initial run up, you have the euphoria extension, you have the pullback day, and then maybe one or two more pullback days. And then, so now you, instead of having green, green, green day, you have like red, red, red day. And then I wait until that momentum shifts to the upside, and then I try to log that bounce. And then the final pattern that I really like trading is the bounce short. So I like when it has multiple red days, ideally one or two, or the more the merrier, really. And then that big bounce day, and then the next day, if it's gapping up into like some sort of form of resistance that it's made from its initial run up, I really enjoy shorting that for a move back down. So just like how you were saying that my journey is a bouncing ball, I like trading the stocks that are the bouncing ball as well.
Fascinating, fascinating.
hmm
It seemed very similar to my previous guest, who was Eduardo.
Yeah,
He
yeah, I
he
know him.
he actually shared his screen and he went through that his particular trade on RVSN. He
Oh
showed
yeah.
he had a bounce short on that, and
Yep.
sounds similar to yours. So, really fascinating that so many people are doing the same things, but still it's a big struggle for many more people to find consistency in this market.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's funny how you mentioned that with Eduardo with the RBS. I think I took the exact same trade as him on that. That's funny. I didn't even know he traded that. But yeah, it's definitely a struggle to find consistency because it's really nice when there's a lot of opportunities. Like in in my opinion, there's been quite a few good opportunities the past few weeks. Um, and because a lot of people, like how I gauge that is like, well, how many people are doing well and making money? If it's a lot, then the market's probably pretty good. Um, but at the same time, for a newer person, it's almost more difficult because there's so many things going on. Like, like you want to focus here, 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 here. And it's almost like you're just jumping around. And then you kind of learn a little bit about this, then a little bit about this, and you end up taking nothing away. So for newer traders, it's definitely not easy to learn in a very busy market environment. But at the same time, it's a double-edged sword because it's good to see the opportunities unfold in real time. That's the only way you can learn. Um, but yeah, it's definitely still never just a straightforward walk down the park to be consistent all the time.
Absolutely. And what will you say? Like you already mentioned that right now the market environment is a pretty hot, and what you think of the semiconductor industry right now?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, especially with the main stock being the large cap SMCI. I mean, that thing is just a monster, and I'm hoping that it can kind of translate some sort of momentum into the small cap areas, so that way they can perform the patterns that I had just mentioned a few minutes ago. So I haven't seen like a big wave of the semiconductors popping off, especially for like the stocks in like the one, two, three, four, $5 range. So hopefully I would do see that. There's really only one that I see. I've been kind of monitoring LAES ticker symbol. So I've been kind of monitoring that one, but it hasn't really done too much. But yeah, so that stuff, and then especially the AI stocks have really been kind of ripping lately. So I've definitely been keeping my eyes in that area.
Amazing. Do you do fundamental analysis at all?
Not too much, not really. I do know about it. Like I know how to read filings and I understand like the dilution situations. I'm no expert by any means at that kind of stuff. But I do think it's important to know, especially if, there is a company that is uptrending and they have some sort of like very bad fundamental reason behind the scenes. Then for me as a short seller, like I long as well. I do about 50/50, but like I said, I mean, two of the setups that I like to do are short selling. So that will add a bit of conviction into my process, knowing that maybe potentially there's a chance that, this pullback could be a lot greater than it typically would be in this, on that first red day or on that bounce short. So that's about as deep as I go into it. Just kind of lessering or adding conviction into my process. And on the flip side, if the stock's uptrending and there's a lot of public knowledge that they have like some sort of big ATM or dilution situation, but it's doing huge volume and it's holding up, well, that probably means there's a lot of short sellers trapped in that stock and it's probably not done doing its initial run up. So that's about all I go into depth in for fundamental stuff.
As much as it helps you.
Yeah, right, right. As much as it helps you, and I like to not get I don't like to get too in love with the filings and forget about what I'm looking at in front of me.
Cool. Okay, we're gonna
Yeah,
start
man.
wrapping up here. So let's hear like, you know, is there any person in the industry you look up to and still date till date he or she inspires you to become a better trader?
Yes, definitely. I definitely have one main person in mind, and that would be Jack Kellogg. He's like I'm very fortunate to call him like a great, great friend of mine, even outside of trading. So that's actually why I moved out to New Hampshire, in the first place, is just to hang out with him and learn as much as I could from him. And over the past couple of years, we've developed a very strong friendship. So, even if I never traded again or he never traded again, starting tomorrow or whatever, he'd still be one of my best friends till I die. So, he's helped me and he's always believed in me and he's been a great, great person, very humble guy. And, as successful as he has been and as he still is, he's very inspiring to me, and he makes it seem very realistic about getting to the goals that we all want to get to. So yeah, that's definitely my main number one person in my life for trading and just as in life as a human in general.
It's amazing that you bring it up because I feel like the crowd on the other side who just sees him on the web, has a picture of him being an amazing trader, but you kind of see the Jack behind the scenes, what he is or how he is just as a human being.
Mm. Yeah, it's great, and he's just as normal as they can be, like super funny guy, like just super chill. He likes doing what he likes doing. He's very inspiring to me as a person and as a trader for sure.
Great. Ben, I wanted to ask you if you read any books or any books you think have helped you.
Okay, yeah. So I'm not currently reading anything, and I've never been great about reading. I love books and stuff like that. I don't want to like act like I read a bunch. I really don't. I want to more though. But a lot of the classic books, especially for newer people, is one that's a good one is I forget what it's called. I think it's something about Stock Operator. It's about Jesse Livermore. You know what I'm talking about? I
Yeah,
forget. It's called.
Reminiscence of Stock Operator.
That's the one. That's a great one, especially for kind of like a good introduction into the market and kind of like getting yourself in the right mindset. And it's kind of inspiring too. Like it's cool to see like what a guy like that did back in, like 100 years ago now. Another one is any book by Brett Steenbarger is good. That goes into more of the deeper psychology of things. So I would recommend that to maybe more like upper novice to intermediate people. After you have some experience with trading and understanding the emotions a little bit behind it, that's a great one. Um, and then and then one technical book. It's called Volume Price Analysis, I think. I'm not sure who the author is, but I believe it's like a blue cover. So yeah, I don't know too many books, but those are definitely some of the best ones that I've taken some peeks at for sure.
Great. Well, thank you, Ben, for coming on this show. I think it was an amazing episode. And
Oh,
actually,
thank you.
I do understand we didn't go like too deeper into technicals and did hear your journey, which was much more fascinating to understand what actually is the foundation of a successful trader rather than just listening to what or how they trade, basically. But we really appreciate you coming on the show, even though it's just me.
Oh, dude, well, thank you, man. I appreciate it as well, man. I always enjoy just talking to somebody about it, just getting some things off my chest, and it's nice to look back sometimes for sure.